Project 2025. I'm sure you've heard the name by now. This giant 900-page plan to essentially restructure the American government into an authoritarian stronghold. The crazy part is that the guy who wrote it isn't some famous politician. He's an academic, a historian, a guy who founded a Catholic school. But he's also a man who calls this the Second American Revolution, bloodless only if the left allows it. Just casually threatening civil war if he doesn't get his way, you know. So today we're asking, who is Kevin Roberts and why is he one of the most dangerous men in America right now? Okay, so here's the story that Kevin Roberts tells about himself. He grew up in Lafayette, Louisiana during the oil bust. He had a really tough childhood. His dad, who he calls a native Cajun French speaker, really struggled with addiction. He lost his older brother to suicide when he was only 9 years old. His mom ended up raising him and his sister largely on her own, and for Roberts, it was really his Catholic faith that got him through that time. On paper, it's the classic conservative origin story. You've got a southern small town, a lot of grit, resilience, family, faith. Fast forward, he gets his undergrad in history from University of Louisiana. He ends up marrying his high school sweetheart, Michelle, and they move out east together. He gets his master's at Virginia Tech, and then he goes to UT Austin where he gets his PhD in African American history. I wasn't expecting that either. After he gets his PhD, he gets a job as an assistant professor at New Mexico State University. But then, according to him, academia pushes him out due to the fact that he's this ideological misfit. He's a conservative white man. Cue the violins. But translation, in real life, he left for more money, more power, and way fewer meetings. From there, he ends up opening his own Catholic school called John Paul the Great Academy, which is really interesting, and we will come back to that later. He does that for a few years. He ends up leaving to go run Wyoming Catholic College, does that for a little bit, and then leaves to go run a think tank in Texas. Eventually, he leaves there to become the president of the Heritage Foundation, where he writes Project 2025. And oh, by the way, he makes over $1 million a year. It's a pretty clean climb. It's a nice story. It's one of adversity, of overcoming, and then ultimately heroism. But here's the thing, when you start to fact check it, it starts to sound a whole lot less like destiny and a whole lot more like strategy. Let's start with his heritage. He claims his family is of Acadian ancestry and that his dad was this native Cajun French speaker. But when you look into it, his heritage traces back to French colonizers, not the native Cajun roots that he implies. He also wasn't pushed out of academia. He did have conservative beliefs, which is different than the majority of academics, but it was actually his liberal professors that helped him get that job at New Mexico State University, where he ultimately left for more money, more power, and a lot less accountability. But here's the part that really gets me. Robert's dissertation is called Slaves and Slavery in Louisiana, and it was praised for its humanity, for its writing about enslaved Black people with nuance, empathy, and depth. Imagine writing this whole empathetic dissertation about enslaved people, only to turn around and say racism doesn't exist. That's not a plot twist, that's a villain origin story. And fast forward to now with Project 2025, he's literally writing policy that dismisses systemic racism, calls DEI insulting to Black Americans, pushes to abolish critical race theory, and leads a legal agenda designed to erase civil rights protections. Like, what the actual? It's not ignorance, it's betrayal. So you have to ask the question, did he actually flip his moral compass, or was this just his plan the whole time? Because either Kevin Roberts has experienced a total moral inversion, or he's using his understanding of oppression to consolidate power for himself. And this is where things really get weird. Kevin Roberts is Catholic, that's not what's weird. But what's weird is that he is a member of this group called Opus Dei. And if you're not familiar, Opus Dei is essentially an organization within the Roman Catholic Church. It consists of both clerical people, that's like ordained people like priests, as well as lay people that are just regular people with regular jobs. There's over 90,000 members worldwide, and over 98% of them are these just regular people. Their goal is to insert the values of the Catholic Church into their everyday lives. And in the US, it's sort of become this ultra-conservative Catholic network, famous for its secrecy, its hierarchy, and even rituals like self-flagellation, which is essentially just hurting yourself as a form of penance. Totally normal. On paper, it's about holiness, but in practice, it's a political machine. Of the 3,000 members that are living in the US, over 800 of them are in Washington, D.C., most of whom are clustered in roles in politics, law, and media. Roberts gets spiritual direction from the Catholic Information Center once a week in D.C. He founded that Catholic school, John Paul the Great Academy, with Opus Dei's founder, Jose Maria Escriva, as its patron saint. He gives leadership talks at their retreats, goes to leadership meetings, and he's not alone. Leonard Leo, the guy that stacked the Supreme Court with far-right justices, is in the same orbit. There's a whole ecosystem of strategists, billionaires, and legal activists that flow through it. I wish I was making this up, but I'm not, and I hate talking about it because it sounds like conspiracy theory, but I promise you it's relevant. Why it's so important that we do talk about it is because when you start to look at Project 2025, you're not just seeing policy, you're seeing religion integrated into governance, because remember, their members are supposed to be carrying out the church's mission into their jobs. So Project 2025 is bringing theology that says suffering is holy, hierarchy is sacred, and obedience is virtue. And all of a sudden, that makes sense. Now here's where Roberts fits into the bigger picture. I've been building this project called Meet Your Overlords for the last few months, and it's basically a map of the people that are pulling the strings in America right now. Every villain squad needs a strategist, and Roberts is basically the guy with the evil PowerPoint turning fascism into a group project. On the map, Robert sits under the strategist. That's his lane. He's not the billionaire bankroller funding everything behind the scenes. He's not the tech bro building surveillance tools. He's the guy writing the master plan. Think about it. Leonard Leo, the Supreme Court phantom, stacks the judiciary. Charles Koch bankrolls the infrastructure. Peter Thiel builds the techno-authoritarian machine. And Kevin Roberts, he's the guy drafting the playbook that ties this all together. That's why his role matters so much. He's the author, the architect, the strategist. And Project 2025, it's his masterpiece. All right, so let's break this down. Project 2025 isn't a book, it's a blueprint for authoritarianism, and it consists of 4 pillars. The first pillar is this 900-page manual called Mandate for Leadership. The second part is this personnel database to replace career civil servants with loyalists. The third part is this training academy to help prep those loyalists as well as to target future recruits. And the fourth part is this 180-day action plan once a conservative president takes office, like Trump did in January, just to make everything stick. It's like if LinkedIn leadership courses were designed by authoritarians. Step 1, write the manual. Step 2, stack your org chart. Step 3, brainwash all the interns. Step 4, profit off everything. And it's not just theoretical. We are deep in it, folks. Nearly 2/3 of Trump's second-term executive orders mirror the plan exactly, including things like DEI bans, immigration crackdowns, and ICE raids, agencies like the Bureau of Labor Statistics being politicized, rollback of reproductive rights, destroying social safety nets with Medicare and Medicaid. In states like Oklahoma, they're even using Project 2025 as a test run to bring religion directly into public schools. This is Christian nationalism directly baked into US law. Not inspiration, not a backdrop, not as the policy thread next to the movement. Christian nationalism is the movement. Who writes a dissertation on the horrors of slavery and then turns around and makes it his life mission to destroy anti-racism, education, and DEI? Kevin Roberts moves through education, faith, and policy, not to belong to those things, but to study the tools to learn the language of liberation, also that later on he can burn the entire thing down. This isn't a guy who's lost his way, it was the long game. Kevin Roberts is building a closed-loop power structure where the only rules are the ones that serve him and his ideology, and he's been at it now for decades. Roberts and the Heritage Foundation are betting that you'll be too exhausted to fight back, but we can prove them wrong. Stay informed, follow the journalist tracking Project 2025, support legal defense groups like the ACLU and Palestine Legal, push back locally against DEI bans and book bans, get plugged into rapid response networks, especially around ICE raids, and most importantly, follow the money and continue to speak out, because authoritarianism thrives in silence, but it collapses when we refuse to look away. If this helped you connect the dots, join the rebellion. Your clicks aren't just clicks. Your likes, your comments, your shares help fight the algorithm that protects the overlords. Subscribe for weekly drops.